broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing after shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hey there, Saul fans. Welcome back to the Better Call Saul After Show here on AFTERBUZZ TV, talking about Season 1, Episode 10, Marco, the season finale. I am Matt Lieberman, and joining me, as always, fantastic panel is here, Mr. Zach Wilson.
Hey guys, thanks for joining in.
The lovely Miss Pegah Rad.
Hi, everybody.
And Mr. Stephen Lemieux.
Howdy.
Howdy. Now, this was a very quiet finale. I feel like a lot of people maybe were hoping for more fireworks after the tour de force that we got last week and the major revelations. I think that, maybe I would have preferred something that had a little more propulsive plot movement, but this was written and directed by Peter Gould. They're going to do it how they want to do it. And ultimately, it was a fine hour of television, if not necessarily what we wanted.
Well, I mean, this has sort of become a pattern on a lot of, especially cable shows, especially 10-episode shows recently, is that I especially noticed it on Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Episode 9 is the big episode.
Is the climax.
The climax, the event episode, where everything that we've been building to really hits its peak. And then, especially if a show knows that it's coming back next year, they use episode 10 in an almost epilogue sense. It's really just, it's setting up, it's tying up loose ends and setting up what is going to happen in season 2.
And yeah, I mean, guys, I liked it. I wanted a little bit more. I found myself a little anxious during some parts, especially the bingo scene. I really was getting anxious. It was like working my nerves.
It was so intense watching him just like slowly, like we know he's gonna break. He's gonna go on some kind of insane tirade, and we're just waiting for him to do it.
And it wasn't even insane though. It was just sad.
It was sad.
It was an important piece of information, but that scene just was endless. A lot of the scenes in this episode just felt endless.
Well, they had to build it, and I really liked how they built it, and I love the camera when it just keeps going to like
the sound design, the editing on that was really stellar. Let's talk about this flashback at the top. We get to see the moments after Chuck pulls him out of jail when he says goodbye to his friend Marco. Honestly, what I liked most about this episode, even if it's not, I doubt it'll be one of my favorite episodes of this show, is it filled in maybe not the rest of the gaps, but the rest of the big gaps in Jimmy's history and in his motivation for becoming who he's going to become. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like a changing of the guard. We got to find out why he wound up in jail. We got to see who he was just before he left. We got to see him flirt with that old life and realize, maybe what he gave up and also what he pinned all his hopes on, and why he gave back all that money and why he's never going to do it again.
Yeah, and it's Chuck. He is the reason for everything he's done.
Well, that's the thing. It's his two worlds coming together. Like he's found, like he gave up. This is the life he knew. Is this con man, Slippin' Jimmy world? He knew it. He was good at it. He lived it for years, and he moved on. And he tried to remake himself in his brother's image. But it was and he wasn't happy there. Like it wasn't going the way he wanted it to. He found out his brother was intentionally making sure it wasn't going the way he wanted it to. And then he goes back, like, oh, maybe and I think everyone can speak to that. Like, we've all tried to go back to something that we had before, like if it's just set for a sense of nostalgia or because we think we were happier back then, whether that's in like a relationship, like when you go back to an ex, or when you just try to like move back into an old job or anything like that. it's not going to be the same way it was because you're not necessarily that same person. I think that's what Jimmy was dealing with, is realizing he's not Slippin' Jimmy anymore. He might not be a new like
He might not
Chuck.
be James McGill Esquire, but he's not Slippin' Jimmy.
Exactly.
I just think it's interesting because this still plays into that past catches up with you thing with the criminal records and people who may change their entire life around, but the promise of you can change your life around and become what you want to be and then have it be torn to shreds when you're still prevented from doing anything because of that criminal record. It's the same with Jimmy. It's really sad because it's his brother that is preventing him from turning his life around. Because he said no to the addiction. It's like he's saying no to the addiction when he leaves his friend Marco in the beginning. He's going that other road. He's going the hard road. He's going the road of
quitting cold turkey.
Yeah, he's quitting cold turkey. And you could be quitting cold turkey. You can go for a year. You can go for 2 years. But if that pot of gold at the end of the road just decides to say, no, you'll never get me, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to relapse. And that's what Jimmy did.
But then he has a chance to go work for Davis and Maine. Explain that. Like, why doesn't he he has a chance to become a reputable lawyer. He has a shot, and he's still...
Because that's not him. That's what he realizes, I think, in that moment, is like, that's what Chuck wants him to do.
Right.
The Chuck model of his life is to go work for Davis and Maine, but that's not the Jimmy model.
What's the Jimmy model?
The Jimmy model is to go and make his own way.
And I think Kim knows him best, and that's why Kim told him and used that as a convincing technique to tell him to take the deal. I also think it's also that, I said also a lot in that sentence. If he goes to Donald and Maine, was it Donald and Maine?
Davis and Maine.
Davis and Maine. If he goes to Davis and Maine, again, what are the questions that he asks immediately when she says that? Chuck won't like this. Oh, what's Chuck have to say about this? And
you must have done something to get me this job. They couldn't possibly want me as a lawyer.
Right.
Really, Matt, you gonna pull it out?
I did it on purpose.
But he's
just that time.
Lawyer.
It's even if he's at another firm, if it's through these circumstances, he didn't earn it, and then he's just only doing what Chuck said he was. He's just putting on the job like it's a pair of slippers because it's being handed to him.
But that's sorry, Peggy.
No, go ahead.
Well, but I was gonna say that's bull. Not that you're wrong about like how Jimmy feels, but like his perspective, like it's wrong. Like he did all the work. Like, yeah, he had some help from Chuck, like and building the case, and like he got a little lucky, but like he did the dirtiest possible work you could do.
Yeah, diaper to the face.
Yeah. It was chilly night.
Mm-hmm. Chilly night. Gross.
But okay, so Chuck's not going to be happy with him going to Davis and Maine. And he's not going to be happy with him going back to Slippin' Jimmy. He's never going to be happy. Can we just stop trying to satisfy Chuck?
And that's what he did.
You're right. Okay, I guess we can.
Well, he also ran away from his own potential.
Exactly.
Yeah, but in what way?
I'm
Because I want to phrase this. I want to phrase this to you guys though, because you could consider him leaving that bar in Chicago running away from his own potential, because he's one hell of a damn con artist.
And Marco flat out says it's like Miles Davis putting down his trumpet.
So him walking away from Davis and Miles, that's running away from a potential that he's never going to live up to who he as a person wants to be.
I guess I just wanted him to take. I wanted him to take the lawyer job. Just try it out. Just see if he can do it before going back to his old ways. That's what I wanted to see.
The question is, where is he going from here? Is he running right back to Nacho? Is it that he's like, I already know how to make the most money possible? I feel like he's kind of squandering an opportunity. I don't know.
Well, I mean, look, he's going to get a big payday, right?
Yeah.
He's getting 20 grand up front.
He already got it.
HH. That's what I mean. Well, yes, he got 20 grand. I assume it just hasn't cleared. That usually takes like a couple weeks for a big check like that to come through.
Oh, okay.
But either way, he's getting a huge amount of cash. He's getting 20 grand, and then another big payday is coming.
In a few years.
Yeah, it takes
potentially
years
in a few
and
years, but it's coming is my point. So like investing the $20,000 in his own self, in his own firm, like making it on his own, as we know he does eventually. But I think that this is where that starts, and not necessarily as Saul Goodman, but as he wants to be his own man, not be Davis and Maine and McGill.
Yeah.
He wants it to just be McGill.
It sounded pretty good when he was walking up to the courthouse until he looks at that ring. He was smiling about it.
He had that pep in his step.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, he spent that last week with his friend's last week on this planet. His friend had a normal job. His friend was doing what everybody normally does, and he said, this was the best week of my life. I need this. I don't need the money. I just need this.
The rush.
He needs the rush. He needs to feel like he's good at something, because that's a man who, I tell you right now, if he's at the bar every day, he's not somebody who people consider good at something. And that's a sad thing to say, but Jimmy is probably the only part of his life that made him feel like he is somebody who has a talent for something.
And they seriously do, because I don't know how they got these two women to believe that Saul Goodman was Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner's manager.
Jimmy.
No. Jimmy was Kevin Costner, and Marco was Kevin Costner's manager.
Yeah.
Living in a shitty basement apartment in Cicero, Illinois.
That's some moves. We're crashing with my cousin in Cicero.
Yeah.
I want to say also, it's kind of interesting when you look at Jimmy. The last question he asks Mike is, he's like, I had $1,600,000 in front of me in cash. We could have taken that. We could have split it, whatever. We'll get into it deeper. I'm just mentioning something.
Yeah.
And he says, why didn't I take it? And Mike says, you said you were going to do the right thing. And I feel like that's the decision his character would make, is Saul was always doing the right thing because he believed that doing the right thing is how he got his brother's approval. But when it came down to it, when Jimmy was the $1.6 million lying on Chuck's table, Chuck didn't do the right thing.
What?
If Jimmy
was okay, so you're saying that giving Jimmy the job, not screwing over Jimmy, is the equivalent of the $1.6 million on the table.
It's the equivalent of giving back of giving the money back because it's the right thing.
And that's why he says, I don't even know what the right thing is anymore, because in his mind, his definition of the right thing is, what would Chuck do? Chuck would do the right thing.
But Chuck didn't. Chuck would have taken the money in his mind because he didn't do the right thing. I think it's a weird way to look at it. I don't know if...
I understand what you're saying. Like, Chuck... The right thing to do would be to help out his brother. Like, however he had to claw his way to the top with the University of American Samoa and, like, whatever it took is to then help his brother climb those ranks. But he made sure to go out of his way to stop Jimmy from getting it. And that's not the right thing. It's selfish. That's the key. Is it's selfish. It's putting Chuck above Jimmy.
Right. It's pride. A lot of pride.
It's taking that money.
Yeah. Let's double back to the beginning. I want to talk about Howard Hamlin, who did kind of an about face, and I think was one of my favorite parts of the episode was how utterly floored he was by what Jimmy had been doing for Chuck every single day for the last year, looking at that list.
He was impressed.
Yeah.
He was deeply impressed, especially considering that this is a guy who he thought was a screw-up, was doing all of this extensive work for his brother and launching his own business and finding this case. Like, that's serious know-how and ingenuity.
Well, this also makes me call into question how sick Howard actually thinks Chuck is, because when we go back to the beginning of the season, we come to think that Howard is really pushing this money on Chuck and pushing these things on Chuck to keep him in the company and not from retiring. But that was like us thinking from a manipulative place, like a negative place. But if you really think about it now and you go back and you see how Howard is and you see how Chuck is kind of making Howard do all these things and Chuck is the one with the influence, it kind of gives a new meaning to the decisions that Howard's been making this entire season.
I don't think Hamlin is as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
It's honestly Chuck. This episode made me see that, with him being nice and just giving him the check and being, like you said.
He's still kind of a douche.
He comes off as arrogant, but I just don't think his intentions were as bad as we thought.
Which is why I'm so excited to see what Vince and Peter do with Hamlin in season 2. Now that we have this utter about face in terms of how we can view this character, there are far more storytelling possibilities than him just being a dick. He's far more complicated and flawed.
Oh yeah, I mean we had talked about earlier in the season, like Hamlin felt like the weakest character because he was just one thing. He was the dick lawyer who was causing our character problems, but he's much more than that. He has a deep respect for Chuck, so much so that he would
railroad his brother's career.
Yeah. He would just ruin this guy's whole career in his life because because Chuck asked him to.
Do you think we'll get a I'm going to say Saul in this case because he's kind of moving to being Saul Goodman. Do you think in season 2 we'll get a Saul Goodman versus Howard Hamlin? Because if he's going to be a defense attorney for criminals, he's the criminal lawyer. Do you see HHM being the prosecuting case in?
No, that would be the state.
It would be the okay.
Any criminals is going to be going up against the state.
They should know that.
Yeah. And also, if he's a partner of a large firm, he's not going to be going to court
at all.
Like, not really. And if it's got to be something very high profile, and he would still have a fleet of lawyers backing him up.
More likely, if that's going to be a scenario, is if Jimmy is representing somebody in a lawsuit against some random person, and that person is represented by HHM, the place that my mind immediately goes is that he's up against Kim.
Right. I think that there's far more storytelling potential in him going up against Kim or going up against Chuck than going up against Howard, who we now recognize as not a kindred spirit, but not a foe either.
Right.
Yeah. So we return to Cicero. We return to the old bar where Marco is just passed out in the middle of the day on the bar, not taking care of the old cutlass at all, which is not fair. It's a classic. It's an American classic.
Yeah, put some body work, some paint on that
some
thing.
Paint on it, it'll look amazing. I can't. Now that people have pointed it out to me, I can't help myself. I legitimately cannot resist. So we do this. We do this first con, or even before that, they kind of catch up, and Jimmy admits that he was in town, but did not call Marco while he was there. I guess largely because he thought that Chuck would be disappointed in him, or he was worried about relapsing or something like that. But I was kind of bummed at Jimmy because I'm just sort of like, look, you're caught in, not in a lie, but basically like you're caught in the fact that you did something wrong. Admit it, apologize, move on. And instead he's just giving these feeble excuses. I honestly expected Marco to rob him and steal the $20,000 this episode. This episode did not turn out how I thought.
But instead he stole our hearts.
Oh.
Not really. Okay, a little bit. Yeah.
He's stealing my heart on The Last Man on Earth, Mel Rodriguez.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's great.
Well, I mean, admit it. When he woke up from, like, when you thought he was dead and he woke up, you were like, oh, he's alive.
Well, I thought he was like sleeping and accidentally passed out on the job.
It got a little too real.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But
how does a cough lead to a heart attack? I just like, oh man, he's got a chronic cough.
Well, if it's cold outside, I think that sort of stress on the body can build up.
That's fair.
Dr. Zach Wilson here.
Don't listen to that medical advice.
Have you ever done something that gives you a thrill that's like very, like, you kind of shake with excitement or you kind of shake? Your heart is pumping loudly a lot.
Yeah.
He's got so much adrenaline running through his veins. He hasn't done this in a long time. He's so excited. He needs this last thing. His heart is probably going a mile a minute in anticipation, and he probably just couldn't keep up.
Yeah, he was shivering with anticipation.
Yes. Yeah. Rocky Horror.
Yes. Before we move on, really quickly, we need to talk about iTunes. Folks, I say it every week, and only because it's the truth. The best way to support AfterBuzz TV and to get a great shout out is to go to iTunes and rate and review the shows that you listen to or watch on YouTube. It's quick, it's easy, and it doesn't cost you a single solitary dime. So go to iTunes, rate and review the shows. subscribe to the channel on YouTube. It's how we're able to keep our lights on and our doors open. It's how we attract our wonderful sponsors, and it's how we get great guests. And it's the best way for you to show us that how you feel about the show and that you like it, and that we're giving you the best Better Call Saul podcast that we possibly can.
So
you also
easy.
get a great shout out here on the show.
All right, we got a shout out from Kuya Will. This thank you AfterBuzz. So awesome that I can load the podcast on my phone, listen to it every week on my commute to work. I'm going to subscribe to all my favorite after show podcasts. It sounds similar to the other one, but it's a different one. Time to Skip Ahead by Nikes. This seems like a good point in the show to skip ahead a month or two. We can see how in just a few weeks how deep Mike and Jimmy and gone. Awesome show, all, and the main does sound like Saul. There you go, Matt. You still sound like Saul.
Thank you. I just want to be a lawyer like my brother, Chuck.
Yeah, I hear it now.
It's awful.
No.
I can't help
The
myself.
last episode.
Stop doing the voice, Chandler.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Matt is our Bob Odenkirk, and Steven is our talking toilet.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I'm
That
willing
actually
to
works
agree.
with all of our
I
after
very,
shows.
very much agree with that assessment.
Can we quickly go back and talk about what the story he tells when he's going through his breakdown in bingo? Because we really didn't elaborate on that.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
the Chicago sunroof.
It's actually got a name. He's not the only one who's done it.
Yeah, people do it, okay? This is something people do.
Close your sunroofs,
This
people.
is a real thing, especially
For
if you
the
got
love
kids
of
in the
God.
car. If you got kids in the car, yeah.
Yeah, so he learned
Cub
he has
Scouts.
a ex-wife.
Yes.
That was
Yeah,
news.
what?
That's huge news.
Yeah.
I assumed that he had never been married.
I want to know more about her.
Yes. Who is she?
You don't think it's Kim?
No.
Couldn't be Kim.
No.
It doesn't.
No way.
It doesn't line up because they would have only met in Albuquerque.
Doesn't line
Right.
up at all.
But I had the same thought initially.
I also had a thought that it was the chick from the bar, the bartender, and then he's got a new stepson.
Myrna?
Yeah.
How weird is it if you're her stepson and a guy says, tell her Slippin' Jimmy came by, and it just sounds so
That sounds
sexual.
nasty.
It sounds so sexual and gross.
Tell her.
Tell her
Slippin'
Slippin' Jimmy.
Jimmy
came by.
She knows.
She knows.
You're right. That does come
Yeah,
off.
you
Sounds
could have just been
real
like,
gross.
I'm an old friend.
I'm an old friend. Tell her Jimmy McGill came by. Slippin' Jimmy. What were you slipping? I slipped. It was. I did
okay.
cons.
So the story he tells progressively just keeps getting worse.
That
Yeah.
dang bee.
To all these old people in the
so
room.
many bees.
Bees?
Oh,
No,
man.
no,
Bees
not
everywhere.
the bees. All in my eyes.
So
my
he drives
eyes.
this white Mercedes with white seats, an S7 like that douche he is, pulls up and double parks in front of this frozen yogurt place, just wants to get some soft serve. So you know what? I go on top of there. And mind you, this guy slept with my ex-wife before she was my ex-wife. Dropped my pants, and I defecated in his sunroof.
On his kids. That's
Little did
so
I know,
nasty.
he's got two little Cub Scouts in the back.
Oh.
Oh,
Got the
And
best
he
tinted
was
windows.
friends.
and I gave him that soft serve.
Yeah, and then he was friends with a lot of powerful folks.
With chocolate.
He's talking public indecency, a sex crime.
But I guarantee you those windows were illegally tinted.
Yeah, at least for Illinois.
That's a great story, though, because it's so indecent, but at the same time, it's Saul. Sorry, it's Jimmy.
It's Jimmy.
And you can just kind of imagine it.
Well, yeah, because indecent exposure, you're automatically registered as a sex offender, right?
Right.
And that follows you forever.
But here's the thing. We had assumed, and maybe I'm speaking for everyone here, but I had assumed that he had gone to jail because of a con gone wrong. The fact is, and I think maybe this is something that he realizes this episode, that he was a good enough con man that it was never the con that got him in trouble. It was never the con that got him in trouble. It was just his temper. Just his temper and being drunk. And I think that's part of the reason why he's able to make this about face at the end of the episode and be like, I know why I didn't take it, and I'm never going to let it stop me again. Yeah, I loved the montage
So
of them
weird.
pulling cons. It felt like something out of the past. Like
Yeah.
it was a little bit like Sweet Smell of Success. It was like a little bit. I don't even know.
I don't know what The Simpsons was referencing, but it was whatever The Simpsons was referencing when Homer was going through and it kept showing like the neon signs passing by.
Exactly.
So whatever
It's
that
style.
was referencing.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember.
We got a Bugs Bunny shout, with Albuquerque, New Mexico. Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
Just mentioning it. Sorry.
We also.
Somebody was saying the Belize thing was a Breaking Bad reference, and I don't. And it sounded like it, but I can't place what it is.
I think that was one of
Was
the.
somebody gonna run to Belize?
Yes, it was Saul. Saul told Jesse he should go to Belize.
Ah, okay.
He suggested that that's where he go with his money.
Thank you. That was
You should
bugging me.
leave town, go somewhere. What about Belize? And
Yeah.
then Jesse held on to the idea of Belize for a few episodes. So this is where that comes from. Nice pull. Does he wear the pinky ring in
I'm trying
Breaking
to
Bad?
find a picture because
I
I'm
want
like,
to say
I
he
think
does.
it looked familiar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did look familiar. I don't know if he wears it in every episode,
Right.
but it does look familiar, and it's more of a Saul Goodman accoutrement than a Jimmy McGill.
I think it was just kind of, it's interesting to really dive into that, and you can dive into it as much as you want, but the ring might just be a reminder to live your life as what you want to live it as, and don't just cater to doing a job every day. And which is sad, because if you look at it now, he's just doing that.
Yeah, he's just
working in
managing a
Cinnabon.
Cinnabon. Miserable.
I
One
wonder
day
if-
going to have a heart attack just like Marco.
Wonder if we'll get, do you guys think we'll get any other present time?
I almost don't want any.
Yeah.
I almost,
Yeah, it's
I'd rather,
depressing.
and also, it's not just depressing. I don't want to F with it. The Breaking Bad ended so very, very well. It ended so very strongly. Why mess around with that legacy? Like, you already took a risk by making this show at all. It's successful at what it does. Let it do that.
But my question is, if Better Call Saul becomes 3, 4, 5 seasons, very successful show, and people want more, would you prefer them to do another spinoff, end it, or continue on from the future Saul and not mention kind of the Walter or any of that kind of stuff?
I just don't know what story potential you have there.
Well, but a lot of people would have said, what story potential do you have with
For
an
this?
early Saul? I think that there could be a good story there, but and they haven't said like, oh, we have a 4-season arc planned, or we have this many, because they've only been picked up for 2. But I want to assume that they have a map of like where this is going to end up. And I trust that they would, even if they don't know what the middle part is, that like Peter and Vince have like an idea, this is the direction we're going, and it will end either ending here right as we meet Saul on Breaking Bad, or we're ending some other place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to see them for a season, maybe for the final season. At the top of each episode, the cold open is all in the future telling one story. Maybe about his eventual death or being on the run or something like that. But at the same time, I just recall them talking about how difficult it was to do that on season 2, and how difficult it was to crack that season and both make a compelling storyline in the present, but also serve these opening little bits and hold off on the plane crash. And I don't think they'd do it again. It just sounded like such a pain.
Could it? Well, they've sort of teased at the idea of showing stuff from the middle of Breaking Bad. Could it be that what we're going to see is we're going to see stuff that we understand from the Breaking Bad world? If we approach it from the Better Call Saul universe, this is a flash forward, and then we're seeing what it was about those events that was like, what's the history behind whatever it was that we saw?
I don't think they can call to Breaking Bad to make a point for Better Call Saul. I don't think it makes sense.
Yeah. Here's dream pitch for how the series ends. If it has to touch on Breaking Bad at all, the final scene of the show is the first time he and Walter meet.
Yes,
Ooh, yeah,
I would
that'd be
agree. I
good.
agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't even need to see him. He opens the door, we see an over the shoulder, bald head, tan jacket. That's it.
That's it.
That's all I need.
Yeah.
Personally.
Or we have a Mr. What was Badger's last name?
Oh, I don't even remember.
Well, we have Mr. Badger's father.
Yeah.
Is here to see you, and then Black.
Yeah. Okay, back to this episode. Sorry, guys. Guess I sent that on a tangent. I apologize.
We're just really excited about
all right.
what's coming.
I know,
what's to
it's-
come.
More.
I think that's one of the brilliant things about how they do a slow finale, though, like this. Because it was slow. It has so much character development, but you're watching and you're like, when is something big going to happen? And I think that's kind of a pit we fall in sometimes with these television series where we build our expectations for some huge reveal too much. Because when I go and watch this back, I'm going to be like, this was phenomenal with where the characters started and left off within only 10 episodes. This series felt like a Netflix series. To be perfectly honest, like from start to finish, this feels like a binge watch show where you just want to keep knocking out the next one.
And it flew by.
It really did.
Yeah, I can't believe it's over. This is 10 weeks.
I can't believe that was only 10. I can't believe that was 10 weeks. It was so quick. It felt so fast.
It was 9 weeks. They aired 2 the first week.
Right.
So maybe
Okay.
that's why.
That's why it was fast. Yeah.
It's going to kill me every time I look at the DVD set for this that the episode is not called Jello. And every episode is, oh, Alpine Shepherd Boy, oh.
Maybe they'll call it Alpine Shepherd Bow
Boo, yeah.
or Alpine Shepherd Boyo.
Boy.
Shepherd Boy.
An Alpine Shepherd Boyo.
Oh, Alpine
Boyo.
Shepherd Boy. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's just touch on the scene at Chuck's where he gives out explicit instructions to Jimmy's replacement, who is
Ernesto.
not detail oriented.
Was he in the mailroom? He was in the mailroom,
I think he
right?
was
When they
in
had
the
the
room,
birthday
yeah.
cake?
That's why they know each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Granny Smith apples, too tart. Fuji's are in season. Red Delicious, he says exactly what I've believed for many years. Red Delicious, tasteless. They're disgusting.
Yeah.
I don't know why the word delicious is in the title. They're gross.
That's the only way to convince
try to
you
sell
that
them better.
they're delicious.
Yeah, they're disgusting.
Yeah, I
They
like
were the
Fuji.
first apples I ever had, and they were the worst apples ever.
Is that why you don't like apples?
And he wants to
I
try
like apples.
soy milk.
Yeah,
Go give me a gallon
He's
of
trying
soy.
new things.
You know what else? It's kind of funny to think of, like, the reason that Jimmy is so good with old people is because he's been dealing with his brothers like
That's
crazy
He's a
true.
things for, like,
caretaker,
years.
yeah.
It's a good point.
Yeah, the old people love him
patience.
because he's got patience. What is it? The Dalai Lama got nothing on me. He's been dealing with Chuck for a year.
It's true.
It's true. I love that when he's talking to Kim, she says, you know, like, you just have a way with the clients. They ask about you every chance that they get. I wish that he would take that as an opportunity to be like, you know what, this elder law thing is working. I have a way with people. I just want him to do something right for himself. Seeing what he becomes and where he goes, I'm just sad. I'm sad. He should have gone for the partnership, man. He wasn't going to be Marco. He wasn't going to be sad and alone. I don't know.
Well, this is
Yeah,
another.
he should've. No, go ahead.
This is another comparative narrative that they have with Breaking Bad, because Vince has always said that they're criminals. I mean, if you think about it, these people are criminals, and you can't have them always come out on top. So Breaking Bad was Walter's story. It was where his life changed. He made that decision, and it led him down to where he eventually ended up. This is Saul, or Jimmy. Jimmy's life, you can see where it could have gone if he had made a different decision. But in this episode, we see the decision he makes. And if you watch Breaking Bad, or just the beginning of this season, you can see where he ends up. He doesn't win because criminals don't win. It's the journey, though, that is so interesting to see how they end up where they are. And that's what makes this show so intricate and so captivating.
Yeah, the journey is the worthier part.
You're watching a train wreck in a way. I mean, technically.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything else you want to touch on from this episode? It's just not a ton happened. It was just real slow.
I wanted to point out that scene where Jimmy talks to Ernesto, or Ernie, or whatever his real name is. You see Chuck inside looking out the window, and he's building up the courage to open the door and walk out to see Jimmy because he probably wants to apologize. And to think of the ramifications of what Jimmy's decision would have been in the next scene had Chuck built up that courage to walk outside and apologize to his brother properly.
You think he
Agreed.
would have apologized?
I think he would have.
I think he would have tried. I don't know if he would have out and out said it or admitted that he was wrong, but he would have tried to bond with him a little bit or get him back in the fold.
Yeah.
You could see how awkward he was with Ernesto giving him instructions. He just wanted somebody to talk to, really.
Yeah.
I don't think he really gave two craps about the apples. He just wanted some company.
I think he cares about the apples.
A little bit, yeah.
I think they were too.
But I think the story could have. I think that's a moment where you look at it and you say this story could be completely different all the way around if Chuck had just opened that door.
Fair enough.
I mean, so many things. If Chuck had just done one thing different, if he had just supported his brother at one more moment, then yeah, Saul Goodman doesn't exist.
Right.
Fair enough. All right, I think it's time for predictions.
God, I can't believe we've gone through this whole episode and it's 34 minutes in.
I know. It's just it was.
We got to
real
ramble for
slow
another
and-
20 minutes, guys.
It was like an independent film from the early '90s. It's slow. It's mostly talking, and it's rich with character. But it's just a small story. Yeah. So next season, we're setting ourselves up. Hopefully not for disappointment, but for something cool. We've got Price and the drug deals that he's setting up with Nacho, who's stepping out on Miho. Oh no. Okay? We've got Mike talking about some other kind of new deal that he's working on, making notes on his crossword puzzle. He's got his son's wife. He's got his granddaughter. What are we thinking? How are we feeling? Me personally, next season is we pick up some months down the road, and Jimmy is he is still a lawyer, but he is corrupt. He's willing to blend what he knows, what he's able to do as a lawyer and what he's able to do as a con man for his own benefit, and it's starting to pay off in its way. I don't know if he's necessarily serving the type of criminals that he was almost served at the top of this season, but I think that he's definitely mixing business with pleasure in that sense.
Yeah, I think he's going out. I think he's probably got like a little office for himself now, not
Maybe
in the
the
back
office.
of. I don't
strip mall
see.
office?
I don't think we're at the Goodman office yet.
Okay.
Because I think that name is still down the road a little bit. But
I agree.
He's starting out that life of, hey, I am willing to. I don't mind being the bad guy. I don't mind being the lawyer who overcharges for stuff occasionally if I see a rich client, or like gets criminals off of terrible things, or like gives advice to the cartel. I still think he's gonna wind up doing some defense work for the cartel, and that's where probably or it's either in defense of or on behalf or against Nacho. I think there's going to become there's going to be some sort of play between him and Nacho with the cartel. That's basically what I'm looking at.
I want next season to be the Rolodex season. Does that make sense?
Where we build up the Rolodex of our cast of characters.
We build up the I know a guy who knows a guy. I want to see different situations. I want to see Saul put in these different situations. And I want the end of next season to be the epiphany of let's open up Saul Goodman. Like, let's open up Better Call Saul. Like, I think like that at the end of next season, the end of season 2 would kind of be a good hitting place for opening the storefront up. I think if we go through the next season with he ends up in some pretty bad situations, like we saw with Tuco in this one. He ends up in some maybe awesome situations. I really want to see him build this contact list through better or worse. And I think that it's the guy Mike was doing protection for. I think that's going to be his first criminal defense job.
Mike refers him basically.
Basically, yeah. Mike sets him up because I bet that guy goes on a protection run with somebody that's not Mike. Or something like that, and then it goes bad, and he ends up in jail, and Mike is the one he calls. And Mike gets Saul. Or Jimmy. Or whatever he's going to call himself next season.
I'm trying to think what's going to happen with Chuck next season. Because I want him to... Yeah. I want Jimmy to make him proud. Even though it's like, I don't care about Chuck, and I don't care what he thinks. But a little part of me wants Chuck to be proud of him for once. And I want Jimmy to have the upper hand. Like, maybe Chuck finally does offer him a position. He's like, you know what? No. Like, I've got my own thing going. I don't know.
First episode of next season, we get Saul Goodman.
You think so?
First episode.
I thought it was going to be this season. I was so wrong.
Hey, I was thinking, but if you think about it, he doesn't want his brother to be able to keep tabs on him. He doesn't want people keeping tabs on him. He wants a pseudonym right off the bat. He's not going by Jimmy McGill anymore. He's past that. He's past trying to be the McGill and live up to McGill. First episode of next season, we get a montage coming up with names.
I think it's much stronger if they don't even show it. If it just comes back and he's just Saul already.
That's a good. Yeah, I mean, you guys are basically saying the same thing. I think that's a good that's a great place to start. That's a kick to the first season, like a big like boom.
Yeah.
I would love. You know how they had the Matchbox last season or last episode? What was the intro this episode?
It was the
coffee.
coffee cup spilling blood
Coffee
everywhere.
cup. Because
coffee.
It was like neon coffee.
The best lawyer ever was cracking.
Yeah.
The best lawyer ever was cracking and spilling all over the
Yeah.
floor. I want to see the first episode of next season. If they do it that way, where they don't even talk about it, you're gonna see all these papers with all these names scribbled out and like which ones are like circled and things like that. All of his potential pseudonyms on papers, and it's just doing a clip show of that.
Oh, maybe next season, if we're doing that, maybe we'll get to meet, like, we'll get Bill Burr back. And
I'd love to see that.
and
And Huel.
Huel, thank you.
Yes.
Huel.
Huel's Rules. Did you ever see that Funny or Die sketch? It was the sitcom spinoff of Breaking Bad, Huel's Rules,
No.
where he moves back in with his ex-wife and his son, and it's a family sitcom starring Huel from Breaking
Oh,
Bad.
man.
Can we do some news and gossip?
Do some news and gossip.
Yeah.
TV News.
So everyone pretty much knows that it's renewed for season 2. Like it's already
they
like
announced that way before the season.
Season
even.
2
Yeah.
is coming up. It's
Finished
gonna
filming.
be. Do you know if it's gonna be 10 episodes or what it's gonna be?
I don't know that there's been an announcement. I imagine AMC is going to keep it consistent with the 10
Yeah,
episodes.
10 is the new 13 and 8 is the new 10.
In case you didn't know, though, this was a few days ago. Bob Odenkirk and David Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
were-
with Bob and David, they're doing a revival of their sketch show, Mr. Show, on Netflix for 4 episodes, but due to a rights issue, they can't call it Mr. Show with Bob and David, so they're just calling it With Bob and David, and the 4 episodes are going to be shooting their live portions with an audience this month in Los Angeles. And
Ooh.
it's going to be the hottest ticket in
Let's
town.
go.
I really want to go.
We should go because we're doing the Better Call Saul.
We should
I
totally
think
go.
that's
We
a
should-
ticket in.
yeah, let's call their publicist.
Do you know the date that have they released the date it's coming
No,
out?
it's David Cross say to keep his eyes peeled to his Facebook.
Okay.
And then this isn't news at this point. I guess it's technically news, but X-Files is being remade, or rather continued. And as we all know, Vince Gilligan was one of the greatest writers for that show. So at pure conjecture, I really hope they bring him back for an episode or two.
I
on the new
think
series.
he's a little busy.
Yeah, I think he's got
Yeah.
a show
And another
That
show
we-
on CBS.
that we really like.
I just
It starts with a B.
Battle Creek?
Oh, yeah.
Battlestar Galactica.
Starts with a B.
Better Call Saul. Or
Get it?
I would
Battle
just,
Creek.
I would
Yeah.
just
Got
love
it.
I would love an episode of the
Breaking
new
Bad?
X-Files.
all 3 of his shows begin with
A
B.
lot of his shows.
Yeah, all 3 of his shows.
Maybe
begin
that's
with
why
That's why
there was
the
a
bingo
rant
thing.
about
Yeah.
bees today.
Oh, maybe.
All of his shows are the bee's knees, though.
They hired
Oh
Bob.
boy.
All right. Well, is that all for news and gossip?
That's it. That's all I
Okay.
got.
Well, folks, I want to thank you so much for joining us all this season. It's been a real pleasure recapping this show for you, and I hope that you've enjoyed these recaps. Please rate and review the show, subscribe on YouTube, and we'll be back next season. Zach, where can the people find you?
You guys can follow me on Twitter at @ZachWilson, ThatZachWilson, and a whole bunch of shows here at AfterBuzz. Tomorrow night we'll be talking Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and coming up next week, I'm going to start talking about Daredevil. So excited.
Guys, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. Follow me on there too, at Pegah Rad.
You guys can find me on Twitter at Stephen Lemieux, StPhenLemieux, doing the Helix finale next Monday. And then I don't think I have any other shows lined up. Graceland comes back, but it's getting a little busy here at AfterBuzz TV with all these shows we're doing.
True.
So we'll see next season, at least on this.
All right. And you can find me on Twitter at Matt Lieberman. That's MattLieberman. You can also find me on SourceFed and SourceFed Nerd, my personal channel on YouTube, youtube.com/c/Matt Lieberman, doing advice content 4 days a week. And I'll be doing Mad Men and Orphan Black here at AfterBuzz. I want to thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next season. Have a good one.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Better call you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.